doing?
Trying to open my lunch, man, but this P38 is not working on this MRE. It's not really an MRE, but I'm sure it's not going to refuse to exit. Hey guys, welcome to Gear Tasting. Today I wanted to start out talking about Max Tracks. You may remember these from one of the very early episodes in Gear Tasting. We got these in and we've had a couple of months to kind of look through them and test them out, and I wanted to come back with a little bit of an AAR here on Gear Tasting, although I'm going to be writing a full article on ITS with my thoughts on actual usage of Max Tracks. But for those of you that don't know, this is basically what in the military we used to call Marshall matting. This is kind of a polymer version of something like that, but they're much better than what Marshall matting ever was. Basically, those were big metal strips of big pieces of metal we would lay down in the sand to drive over with the stake trucks and other kind of trucks that we use in the military to kind of get around. But these are lightweight, they're made out of polymer, they're super durable, and we actually just tested one of these not too long ago in full-on muddy conditions. So the muddy conditions are more what I wanted to talk about with Max Tracks, because there's some kind of important takeaways that I felt were cool enough to share here on Gear Tasting, rather than just make this about the device itself. There's some considerations which with some of the other gear I have kind of laying around too. So the Max Tracks performed effortlessly. Just kind of wedged this under a tire that got stuck on my rear wheel, and we were able to drive right out of the muck that we were stuck into. But the real heart of this, and why I wanted to explain this, is because I dealt with some other gear along the way in being able to even place these in the mud. So if you're in a muddy spot, you know, as soon as you get out of your truck, you may be presented with mud that you're stepping out into. So you may wind up getting your boots and gloves or whatever you have on, your clothing, all full of mud too. So that's an important consideration in my opinion. It's not that I don't like mud, I would roll around in it if I could. The problem is that you're getting back into your vehicle and driving away once you get unstuck. So those are kind of considerations you have to have. One thing I am going to start keeping in my truck, which I really don't keep, and actually now that I think about it, I think I do have one stashed away somewhere, but it's just a trash bag. So, so some clothing that got beyond dirty, I probably would have stuffed in the trash bag, like even like muddy boots and muddy gloves and things like that too. So I do have WeatherTech mats down in my FJ, which I like a lot. It makes it easy to just pull those out and rinse them off, but at the same time, that's just time you have to spend later afterwards cleaning all that stuff too. So if you can cut down on your cleaning time, why not? So the other thing that I want to address, there's two things that kind of came out of this, kind of a lessons learned, so to speak, from this. One were that the treads idea, these are kind of over boots that I bought a long time ago off Amazon, and what led me to them was I really didn't read anything about it. I just kind of started thinking there's got to be some type of overboot galoshes kind of thing that you can buy to put over if you're in a muddy situation. I haven't done too many recoveries. This was the first time that I've ever really been truly stuck, and it was on purpose, testing the Max Tracks. I've never really had issues. I've always been the one pulling other people out that got stuck, which I'm glad to do. I've just never been in the situation where Rob, I forgot to put in four-wheel drive before I went into the mud. But at any rate, I started thinking about that, and you know, basically the way that I use these is, you know, I stuff my regular boots on over these, and they can be a challenge without having the leverage of your foot actually being in here. So I will try to show you real quick. Go. So as you can see, I bought these sized to where my normal boots would actually go inside of here, so it's easy to just keep these within reach within my truck, pull these on over my boots, and then step out into the mud. So whenever I'm coming off of there and my truck is unstuck, I can then slip these off and put them in a plastic bag like I was mentioning. So these worked phenomenally. I kept my boots relatively mud free. You can see I still have some mud on here from the last time we were out in that and testing them. But I'd say overall it didn't require me, hosing off my boots when I got back, and I didn't get a bunch of mud in my truck because of those things. So they're worth their weight in gold in my opinion. Plus they're made in the US. I always like to try to buy US made stuff when I can. I also grabbed these whenever I got out of the truck, just some standard GI issue leather over gloves, and they were okay. I mean, I was able to rinse off all the mud on them pretty easily once I got back, but if you've ever worked around leather gloves, you'll know that they're pretty slippery when they're wet and muddy. So that's a consideration that, I kind of ran into whenever I was doing stuff. So I'm probably going to keep something like these. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but they're Kiyu gloves. There's something that a guy, Peter, did a review on our site for a while back, a couple years ago. I've been using these for a long time. They've gotten pretty beat up, but I really love these gloves, so I'm going to try using these next time. They're kind of a soft shell material, so I'm hoping that they'll wash a little easier, and also even give me a little grip when they're muddy. So that was kind of a consideration. I'm also debating on just full-on waterproof gloves too to use. So just wanted to mention that. Like I said, the MaxTrax review is coming to ITS. Can't say enough good things about them. I basically took 4 of these with us out onto the trail. I had them stacked up in a rear wheel spare carrier on the back of my truck, and they were pretty relatively easy to get in and out when I had the issue and we actually got stuck. The rear wheel harness can be a little tricky to figure out, and that was just kind of something I had to work through, but I did notice after the fact that the website does have pictures and instructions on how to put that together, so probably should have looked at that first, but at any rate, those are MaxTrax. All right, one of the things we recently got in to take a look at is from a company called Battery Clip. And just to address the elephant in the room first and foremost, yes, I probably would have called it a mag rather than a clip, but it is what it is. These are the battery clips from batteryclip.com. They reached out, wanted us to check out their product, and I'm happy to do so. I'm kind of a battery junkie. I'm always looking for different ways to store batteries. So I definitely was looking forward to checking these out. The premise is very much magazine-like, so it's got a follower and a spring in it. And this particular model is the 123 battery, so you take your batteries and put them in like so, and you just keep loading them up. So the 123 holds 8 batteries, and once you have those loaded in, you just press down with your thumb to just kind of pop them out. See if I can... And then you can basically load 8 in this, the AA, which is the other configuration that they have here. They have instructions, I guess I should read those. Hold clip in one hand with index finger covering ejection hole, place battery in the loading area at 45-degree angle, push the cell into the clip with the thumb on hand holding the clip. So here's some AA's. I'll try loading these up real quick. I do like the spring in these. It's a pretty loose spring, which is a nice thing. I think if the spring were too stiff, it would not really be conducive to the design. So I do like that. It is pretty easy to work those out. Yep, batteryclip.com. So I guess I have mixed feelings about kind of using the clip aspect. I don't necessarily think that this is mag pouch size, but you could definitely store it in certain pouches. We'll kind of check that out. Yeah, so it's a little bigger than a 223 size pouch, as you can see, which is a good thing. I think I probably wouldn't store those in mag pouches. I would find someplace else to carry them, but they are a little lengthy. So in terms of gear, I don't know if you'd really have to have a dedicated pouch for them too. That would be a consideration. I guess you could stick them in a cargo pocket or something like that, or it would be more for storage too. So they are pretty durable. I feel like they could hold up well. I don't think you could, you can see they're kind of split in the middle there. You can see the spring exposed, but I don't know if they'd hold up to like the run over a PMAG with a car trick. But anyway, batteryclip.com. Looking forward to kind of putting them through their paces and checking them out. Welcome to Questions Over Coffee. I have one question I'm going to read today because it's kind of lengthy. It's a two-part question, and it's something I really don't talk about much, which is my military background, so I wanted to answer it for this guy, who is his name Willing Abel? Is that really a... Okay, it's a cover name, Steph. Can you talk about your military career on the next gear tasting? I'm very curious why someone as tactically intelligent, why thank you, as yourself, didn't make it through the Navy SEAL pipeline. I'm curious because I'm obsessed with being a Navy SEAL, and I'm 19 and a bit intimidated that someone like you wasn't able to become a SEAL. I've read a lot of books about Navy SEALs making it through the pipeline and their successful careers, but I'd love to hear from someone who was obsessed with becoming a SEAL but just didn't make it for whatever reason. Also, if you could only hold on to 10 books, which 10 would it be and why? Get to the books part in a second. So, yes, that's what I went in for. Whenever I wanted to become a SEAL, I wanted to do that since I was probably 11 or 12 years old and first found a skydiving magazine along with the same time as watching Navy SEALs with Charlie Sheen. That's kind of what led me down that path and led me to explore more in the Navy and eventually wanting to become one. There was many years where I didn't think that I even had the ability to be one. It was just kind of a bucket list kind of thing. And it wasn't until I almost died that I actually started training for becoming a SEAL. I had a pneumonia really bad in like a lung and a half full of fluid. I almost died, and that's when I kind of had a reality check in my life, and I said, you know, if I'm gonna die just being kind of living every day, I'd rather do it out there and actually put myself on the line to train like that. So that's what I started doing. I started really pushing myself hard. If I could recommend something to you, it would be to look up Stu Smith and his 12 Weeks to Buds and start doing that program until you throw up. So I would do that back to back and go through the book multiple times and make sure you're capable of doing that kind of training before you actually enter into the pipeline. I would wholeheartedly recommend that. I'm not sure what Stu's up to now, if he's got a better training program, but that was really one of the only things out there at the time back when I was joining. That was, 9/11 kind of pushed me into that too, because I joined in 2003 and I spent probably the time from 9/11 when it happened to 2003 when I went in just training. So that's what I feel like gave me the mental fortitude to be able to even go, not even to be mentally capable, because BUDS is 90% mental. Most people will tell you that. The roughly 2/3 of the pipeline that I did make it through for the BUDS portion, that's kind of what I experienced too. When I got through Hell Week and pool comp and some of the harder challenges, completely 90% mental. I would wholeheartedly agree with that statement. It's 10% physical, but that 10% physical ability gives you what you need to be able to mentally get through that training. So what happened to me is I had a gas embolism. So I've been scuba diving since I was 12 years old. Again, with that whole Charlie Sheen Navy SEAL thing, I went out and talked my parents into letting me get scuba certified when I was really young. So it was a junior open water certification. I know all about proper ascent rates, and that's typically what happens when you get a gas embolism or an AGE, is your ascent rate isn't proper and you'll wind up getting air bubbles in your bloodstream. I had a weird turn of events because what happened to me was that in the event that my injury occurred, I was diving with the dragger in San Diego Bay. I was with a swim buddy. We were only down roughly 20 feet, and I had what was called swimmer-induced pulmonary edema. I didn't know it at the time. It's also referred to as SIPE, but basically that's water in my lungs. That's kind of took me back to past pneumonia injuries, which kind of scared the shit out of me. So I knew that I had some symptoms of that, but I never went to medical about it. And this was actually my second time getting rolled when I was in class 254. And the outcome of not only the SIPE in my lungs, but they still say the rig wasn't really malfunctioning. It passed the dive suit check that morning on my dragger, so I know that I did have a rig that was closed up, meaning that it was sealed, that wasn't leaking any. They go through the whole no bubbles, no troubles thing on the dragger, because if you see bubbles, then there's air that's into the system and you shouldn't dive the rig. You should go back through your dive suit check or your pre-dive check list and make sure your dragger is working right, but that's kind of a long story. But at any rate, I don't think the rig was really malfunctioning. I think it was a combination of me just having that SIPE in my lungs, because my swim buddy never got an AGE, which means that we ascended at the right rate because he didn't get one. At least that's what goes through my mind. But when I came to the surface of that dive, and this was in Draeger Hell Week, so it's one of the last weeks of second phase before you roll into third phase, and that's when I got my injury. So really, BUD/S is a luck of the draw thing. There's a lot of luck involved with it. Yes, you have to be physically fit. You have to have mental fortitude. You have to be able to get through those evolutions. But there's also a lot of luck involved in it. A lot of guys will tell you that. There's plenty of good guys that don't make it through training. There's even some dirtbags that make it through training. So it's just kind of a weird melting pot. There's no rhyme or reason for who makes it through BUD/S. There's no body type. There's no mental type. We had a pentathlete in our class that quit during Hell Week. I mean, this guy could run and swim circles around everybody. He was just this stellar athlete. And when he quit in Hell Week, there was probably 4 or 5 guys that rang out directly after him just because of the repercussion of having a guy like that quit. So again, that's where that mental fortitude comes into play, is that those guys didn't have it because they were so latched on to this guy being Superman that they thought, well, if he quit, then there's no way I can make it through that. And that's just you in your head mentally defeating yourself. So I would stress the mental aspect of that wholeheartedly first and foremost before anything else. But that being said, the physical ability and you being able to get through that program, I mentioned the 12 weeks of BUD/S, if you can do that back and forth, that will give you a lot of that mental ability just in knowing that you can overcome those physical challenges. So that's what I would recommend when it comes to that. So I wouldn't really worry about me not making it and you thinking, well, if he can't make it, I can't make it. Don't do that. You're just beating yourself up in your head. If you want to do it, go out there, train, make sure you can do the physical elements of BUD/S before you go there. Research everything. Seek out people that have already been through it that you can train with. Seek out motivators. And then, now they have so many guys that are involved in the pipeline that are probably local to you. It's not even funny. I had to drive hundreds of miles up to Oklahoma to even find a SEAL recruiter. There was like only 2 in the country back when I enlisted. And this was before they had separate divisions at boot camp where the dive motivators worked with you. We had to basically sneak out of duties in boot camp to even go to the dive motivators to work out. I got out of shape at boot camp. You're probably not going to be in that situation now. So there's a lot of things that are much easier now when you're going through the pipeline, but it's not like they're making it easier to get through. Even with all the changes that they made at Naval Special Warfare, the pipeline is still strong. Yes, they've made some changes in the actual curriculum, but from what I've heard, the ratio is still the same. There's still plenty of people quitting. Just to let you know, we started our class with, back in 251, the class I went through Hell Week with, we started with roughly 220-ish, something like that, I believe. We graduated Hell Week with 70. Anyway, there's a joke that I won't tell because it's kind of an inside story. But anyway, that's my 2 cents on the SEAL pipeline. So hopefully that gives you some insight and helps you along the way. And yeah, I did make it. I spent some time at Naval Special Warfare. I got lucky. So after I got hurt, I got to hang out there for a while. They were trying to get me better. They didn't just kick me out and throw me in XDiv. I got really lucky. A senior chief really helped me out, and I was able to be kind of squirreled away and do kind of odd jobs around Naval Special Warfare while I was trying to heal up and get better. It just never happened. I spent close to a year there after that injury occurred, and it still never worked itself out. So I wound up getting out at that point, went back to school on the GI Bill, and even tried to roll back through again and go through MEPS and all that stuff. And some guy behind a desk was sitting there with his stamp of approval and said, "Sorry, kid, you're not going back through." So no matter what I did and how much I tried to get people to write me letters of recommendation, it just never happened again. I was ready to go back through the whole pipeline and go through Hell Week again and all that stuff, but just wasn't in the cards. So that's how ITS was formed. So little bit of an aside there, but so if you could only hold on to 10 books, what 10 would it be and why? Rather than give you 10 books and sit here and go on and on about books I've read and what I feel is most important, I would like to just give you one that's pretty applicable to what you're going through. Read Gates of Fire. That's one of the books that I would wholeheartedly recommend to anybody kind of going into a situation that they'll be challenged with adversity. Great Gates of Fire is a tremendous book when it comes to mental fortitude, so definitely look that up. Hey guys, thanks for watching Gear Tasting. Remember, if you have questions, use the pound tag Gear Tasting on any of the social media networks and we'll get them answered here on the show. If you're digging what we're doing here on Gear Tasting, check below and join our crew leader membership and allow us to give you back something in return. Thanks again.